Which brings us to item number 6, HB 1230 by Representative Hemmer. We have a motion and a second. Second. Okay, you are properly before us. There's no. Go ahead. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm sorry I was a little late. You know, this time change has just been really hard on me. I don't know if anybody else has had this problem as well, but I might have something that can help. While there are many things we might not agree on, many, if not most Americans find going back and forth to daylight savings time and standard time twice a year to be extremely disruptive. It can also be unhealthy and puts us at risk for heart attack, stroke, sleep loss, and car accidents. We can end the daylight saving times without waiting for the federal government to pass legislation, which has been gridlocked in D.C. The way we can do this is to do what Arizona and Hawaii have done and opt out of daylight savings time and go to year-round standard time. More than 20 medical, scientific, and civic organizations support eliminating daylight saving time and going to year-round standard time, including the AMA, American Academy of Sleep Medicine, and the National Safety Council. So while Tennessee did pass a daylight savings time bill in 2019, including I think every member of this committee except for the representative from Shelby County and representative from Knox County because they were not here. This bill is proposed legislation can coexist with that 2019 bill. It does not require federal action. And that's because this is doing a regional approach that if the bill would allow the Commissioner of Transportation to certify in writing to the speakers of the Senate in the states of Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Mississippi, and North Carolina to exempt themselves from this provision. Currently, Tennessee is going to be a leader in this. The state of Arkansas has also filed this similar legislation that's moving through. We have a sleep medicine physician and an expert on this subject here to speak today at the will of the committee, and she'll be able to provide a little more detail about the science behind and how these clock changes impact us in negative ways and why we should look at this legislation. And if the committee would be willing, I would love to have 2 witnesses speak on this bill, please.
Okay, we'll entertain that motion and we'll go out of session. And we've got Beth Malow, is that correct?
That is. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Chairman Holzclaw, distinguished
and
members.
we got Matthew Horsnell too. So you can come up.
Right. Okay, sure. Yeah, I wasn't sure of the protocol.
Okay, now what you're going to do is you're going to sit down and you'll see a little.
Yeah, wonderful. And Matt will be our citizen witness after me. Thank you so much, Chairman.
Okay, and state your name and who you're with for the record.
I'm Dr. Beth Malow. I'm a practicing neurologist. I direct the Vanderbilt Sleep Division, and my views expressed do not necessarily reflect those of my employer.
Okay, now when you start, we're going to give you 3 minutes to do your spiel.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm ready. Okay. Should I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, great. Chairman Holzclaw, distinguished members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 1230. As you heard earlier this month, we participated again in the outdated ritual of changing our clocks back and forth. This actually contributes to sleep loss, fatigue, and an uptick in heart attacks, arrhythmias, strokes, medical errors, and traffic accidents. And this bill would put Tennessee on year-round standard time in coordination with neighboring states. It's the healthiest choice for Tennesseans. While many of us enjoy the extended light in the late afternoons and evenings provided by daylight saving time, it comes at a price to our health. And right now, daylight saving time robs us of the morning light in the spring and fall. Year-round daylight saving time would add even more darkness to mornings. And in morning light is optimized by standard time. Morning light is healthier because it aligns our brains and bodies with the outside world. And morning light wakes us up, boosts our mood, and promotes sleep. And we all know we need a good night's sleep to promote healthy weight, fight heart disease, diabetes, depression, boost our immune system, and improve productivity. Year-round daylight saving time would result in very dark mornings in the winter, especially in cities in the western part of our state that are in the eastern time zone, such as Johnson City, such as Knoxville. which would not see sunlight until close to 9 a.m. in January. And that's not healthy and has a direct negative impact on our sleep. Many schools start classes before 8 a.m., meaning sleep-deprived children and teens would be walking to school or driving to school in the dark, and the health, wellness, safety, and productivity of many of our essential workers, including our police, our firefighters, healthcare providers, as well as teachers and farmers would be affected. We tried daylight saving time in 1974 during the Middle East oil embargo, and many of us got to experience it in the winter. And it was very unpopular with Americans. It was repealed early. Let's not make that mistake again. In a recent poll, Americans expressed that they valued the time that was healthiest, most in line with our biology, promoted safety in the morning, and helped us sleep better. And opting out of daylight saving time and staying on standard time year-round is consistent with these values. It's the healthiest choice for Tennessee, and we can lead the way within our region toward ending the antiquated ritual of changing our clocks. Please vote to support House Bill 1230. Thank you.
Okay. You would like the testimony, state your name and...
Yeah, my name is Matthew Horsnell, and I am a proud lifelong Tennessean. I am also a person who lives with multiple sleep disorders. I was diagnosed at age 25 after a 13-year journey to diagnosis with a condition called narcolepsy with cataplexy. 7 years later, I was diagnosed with a condition called obstructive sleep apnea, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It impacts over 70 million Americans, which is about 1 in 5 of us. I'm here to talk today about how this bill will impact me. The ability to actually not go back and forth would have a profound positive impact on my life, and particularly going to permanent standard time. The best non-pharmaceutical intervention outside of naps for my condition is morning sunlight. In order for me to wake up, feel restored in any capacity, I need to have sunlight exposure. I can replicate some of that with a light box. That's not enough, though. In order for me to really feel my best, I'm going to need to get outside, enjoy the sunlight, enjoy the exposure. I'm also the proud dad of 3. I've got 2 that will actually be voting in the upcoming election, and a 10-year-old son who wants to vote, but, that's how things go. But it also impacts them. I see their struggle. Right now they're on spring break, but when they were going to school last week after this began, it was like pulling teeth to get them up and get them out of bed. And my heart kind of breaks to think how that would impact them moving forward, particularly my son, to wake up and potentially be going to school in the dark. With in Chattanooga, sunlight would not be coming out until closer to 9 than it would be to 8. And I think that's really problematic when it comes to making sure that we're really empowering kids to excel in academics. This is something that's very important to me. It's something that I take time out of my day, and I don't have a lot of extra bandwidth. And so I decided to come here today to speak, to represent the sleep community, to represent myself as a dad, and to represent the 1 in 5 Americans who do live with a sleep disorder, not just sleep apnea. So it's an honor. I really would hope that you guys would consider the actual science behind this. Dr. Malow can explain that infinitely better than I can, but I can tell you from my own experience, I struggle with the back and forth. And particularly, I struggle with the spring forward. It's not just the loss of 1 hour of sleep. It's the fact that I wake up every day and feel like I haven't slept for 48 hours. That's a good day. And so this bill would actually benefit me and help me have a more natural progression without having to use more pharmaceuticals and use natural interventions like sunlight. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate everyone on the committee giving me an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, members. We have questions. Representative Beck, you are recognized.
Thank you both for being here today. So let me get this straight. Your proposal is, if we follow the science, we're better off not springing ahead in the spring.
Correct.
And the reason for that is basically the morning sunlight. Is that correct?
Correct.
What about in the afternoons when it's dark by 4? That's pretty depressing to me.
That is, well, let me just say that that's the biggest argument in favor of being on the daylight saving time, and it's all trade-offs. And as I said in my comments, I've been very impressed by Americans in some of these national polls where what they say they want most is morning light, safety for their commute, safety for their kids' commute. They want the light that aligns their brains with the outside world, and they want to get a good night's sleep. And all of those things are promoted by the permanent standard time. I wish we could have light. You know what I mean? I wish we could have light at both ends, but we can't. We have to choose. And that's the healthiest thing. The other thing, as Matt said, is we want to stop going back and forth. Everybody, I think, almost everybody wants to stop going back and forth. And we're gridlocked in Congress right now, in the U.S. Congress, because it requires an act of Congress to go to the permanent daylight saving time. While we can go to standard time without an act of Congress, we can do that as a state, we could do that as a region. And that's why we feel this is a more effective and easy way to end the clock change.
Representative Beck?
Can you explain to me more? You made a mention, Doctor, about 1974. Tell me what they did then and tell me what the results were.
Yeah, so in 1974, because of the oil embargo in the Middle East, the idea was we were going to try to save energy by going to permanent daylight saving time, and it was under the Nixon administration. It did not save energy. It was 79% of Americans wanted to do it, and 1 or 2 months into it, only 42% of Americans liked the idea because their kids were going to school in the dark. They were going to school in the dark. Everybody was miserable. Florida, the state legislature in Florida tried to get out of it because there were some fatalities among school kids in Florida, and they were not allowed to do that because it was federal law, but then it was repealed early. It was supposed to go for 2 years. It was repealed several months later because everybody was really upset with it. And I think we have to remember history. I think we have to think back to what happened then, because as we said, it's going to be like close to 9 o'clock in Knoxville, Chattanooga, Johnson City, the east part of our state, if we were to go to the permanent daylight saving time.
Representative Beck?
What contiguous states did Tennessee have done this?
I'm sorry, what contiguous states?
Have opted out of daylight savings?
Well, right now, Arkansas has active legislation to do it. They're the only ones so far, although as you could see from the bill, we wouldn't want to do this alone. We don't want there to be confusion if people are going to Kentucky or whatever. So the idea is if we can do it, and maybe Arkansas can do it this legislative season, we can work with the other states in our region to get them involved. There are people in all of those states who are very interested.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you for your time.
Representative Chisholm?
Thank you, Chairman. So the genesis of daylight saving time was 1974?
The genesis actually goes back to the World Wars.
Okay.
And in World War I, we adopted seasonal daylight saving time. And then after the war, people were kind of done with it. So we went back to just everybody kind of being on standard time, which aligns kind of with the light being up above your head at noon, the more standard natural time. And then with World War II, we went to year-round daylight saving time. Again, the effort at that time was to save energy. That was a very different world then. It was mostly electrical energy and lighting of your house. Now there's evidence that daylight saving time may not actually save energy, may even cost energy, but those studies need to still be done. After World War II, everybody went back to standard time, but there was a lot of confusion because some places wanted to go on daylight, some wanted to go on standard. I believe some actually did do one or the other or both, and it was very confusing. So in 1966, Congress did the Uniform Time Act, which basically put everybody on daylight saving time for part of the year, but you were allowed to exempt as a state, and that still holds. So Arizona and Hawaii exempted and are on year-round standard time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the speaker, certainly, I know you've spoken to Congress, and I've certainly listened to you on 99.7. so you certainly are a great expert in this subject matter. And again, the argument about let's decide, and I think you make a great argument for standard time. I certainly just would rather it just stay one time period. And I know there's been some suggestions go to the half hour, split the difference and let it go. But the thing, and I guess I might go back when the sponsor comes up, and if our surrounding states, the biggest issue I have is the economic confusion that having a hybrid of time zones surrounding us would cause. And if we could pass legislation that says if all our neighboring states would decide whatever we'll go standard time as soon as they go standard time. And I think if we can get there, I'm certainly all in. So
Yes. I just want to clarify, that's the way the bill is written now. We would do nothing until the other states came on board.
Okay.
That's a very important point. I'm glad you made that. And both this is not overturning 2019, what you guys voted on then. Both pieces of legislation, as Representative Hemmer said, can coexist. So we can kind of hedge our bets and see. I don't see the federal government doing anything very soon. Marco Rubio has introduced this bill 5 times. There's a lot of feeling in Washington right now. There's too much. Indiana, it would be 9:07 in the morning before they saw daylight under permanent daylight time. So I just don't see this going anywhere soon on a national level.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions, comments? Seeing none, we'll go back in. Thank you for presentation. We'll go back in session. And once again, Representative Hemmer, you're recognized on 1230. We have questions, comments? Yeah, that's a good question. We might ask you, why was Virginia not included in this list of states?
Yeah, I think we didn't want to make it an all-encompassing region, but we
Yeah.
certainly could amend it.
I think it might have been an oversight. We're happy to include that in this if the committee would find that as a will. We did get a number of our contiguous states, and might have just been an oversight.
Yeah, they're definitely connected to us. So.
To you too. Okay.
You know, I'm a proponent of the daylight savings because, you know, if you have kids, by the time you get off work and do all that, you get to go out and play with them a little bit versus it being dark. So, but any other comments, questions, committee? So we're ready. Question has been called. So we are voting on 1230. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Bill moves on to full.
Thank you. Members of the committee.